This story is about a farm boy named William Bill Russell. He made millions, and so can you. Picture this, a farm boy from Tennessee who dropped out of college because he was too homesick. Fast forward a few decades, and that same guy is running an $80 million company. But here's the twist that nobody sees coming. He didn't build a tech startup. He didn't create a viral app. He didn't invent anything revolutionary. He built his fortune in one of the most boring, unsexy, overlooked industries you could possibly imagine. Landscaping, cutting grass, trimming hedges, laying mulch. And he did it without spending a single penny on advertising. This is a case study about William Bill Russell and 3 secrets from how he became a millionaire. But before we get to those secrets, you need to understand something that's going to challenge everything you think you know about building wealth. Bill Russell didn't follow the Silicon Valley playbook. He didn't chase venture capital or dream of a massive exit. He didn't build something sexy that would get him on magazine covers. He built something boring, something unglamorous, something that most ambitious entrepreneurs would completely overlook. And that's exactly why it worked. So let's go back to the beginning, because the story of how a college dropout built an $80 million empire in the most boring industry imaginable actually starts with failure. Bill Russell grew up 40 miles south of Nashville on a working farm. He wasn't destined for greatness. There were no early signs of genius. He was just a farm kid who helped manage livestock, crops, and family finances. The oldest of 35 grandchildren, Bill learned the value of hard work from his father and faith from his mother. He loved Tennessee walking horses and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. That dream took him to college in Kentucky, and this is where the failure happens. Bill got so homesick, so overwhelmed by being away from everything familiar, that he completely stopped attending classes. When his father found out, Bill dropped out and went back to the farm. College dropout. Failed at his first attempt to build something beyond the farm. Most people would see that as the end of the story. The farm boy tries college, can't handle it, goes back to what he knows. But Bill's story was just getting started. Because Bill got drafted into the Army, he served 2 years, including a tour in Vietnam and time on the 6th Army military funeral team. Those 2 years of military service transformed him completely. When Bill came home, he wasn't that homesick kid anymore. He was focused, disciplined, and ready to give education another shot. He enrolled at Middle Tennessee State University, married Sherry, the daughter of his hometown mayor, and double majored in pre-veterinary medicine and agronomy. He worked hard, served in student government, and became president of his fraternity. 4 years later, he was ready for veterinary school. The farm boy who dropped out was now a college graduate with ambition. But then something happened that would completely redirect his life. Quick thing before we continue. As you're watching this, pay attention. There are 3 millionaire secrets shared from this millionaire that most people completely miss. I didn't even notice them at first, but once you see them, they make total sense. Oh, and one more thing. At the end of the video, I'm going to share 2 free resources that can help you start your own business or to scale your existing business. No catch, just genuinely useful stuff I wish I'd found sooner. You can also get the links to the resources in the description area. All right, back to the video. A professor suggested he pursue a master's degree while waiting for veterinary school to open. Bill took the advice, moved his family to Illinois, and that's when he saw something that made him abandon his veterinarian dream entirely. The agricultural chemical industry was exploding across the Midwest. Fortune 500 companies were recruiting graduates aggressively. The opportunities were massive, and Bill Russell, the farm boy who understood soil and crops and the science of growing things, realized he could make way more money in agri-chemicals than he ever would as a rural veterinarian. He pivoted completely, earned his PhD in agricultural chemistry from Ohio State University on his 30th birthday. Every single degree is paid for by research associateships and the GI Bill. Zero student debt. And immediately after graduation, he landed a district manager position with a globally recognized pharmaceutical company. Now here's where the story gets interesting, because Bill Russell spent the next 20 years doing something that seemed completely unrelated to his future fortune. He became a research scientist studying pesticides and landscape management. But he wasn't studying average properties. He was analyzing the most prestigious, most meticulously maintained properties in America: Augusta National, Disneyland, Opryland, USA, Arnold Palmer's Bay Hill Club, PGA National. Bill was getting paid a Fortune 500 salary to reverse engineer perfection in commercial landscaping. He was learning, at a scientific level, what separated mediocre landscapes from world-class ones. He understood soil chemistry, pest management, plant biology, and systematic maintenance at a PhD level. And the entire time, he had no idea he was building the foundation for an $80 million business in the most boring industry imaginable. But Bill wasn't just focused on his corporate career. On his very first company-paid vacation, he didn't go to the beach. He went to the Missouri Auctioneer School. He learned how to sell real estate at auction. Soon he was traveling the Midwest for his pharmaceutical job during the week, selling real estate on Saturdays, then racing home Sunday mornings for church. The farm boy was building skills, expanding his network, creating opportunities in the most unglamorous ways possible. By 1983, Bill's company promoted him to Southeast Regional Research Director in Atlanta. When he started house hunting, colleagues recommended Gwinnett County for its visionary leadership, business climate, and school system. Bill listened, moved to Gwinnett, and later called it some of the most prudent advice he'd ever received. Everything was perfect. Fortune 500 salary, career on the rise. The family settled in a great community. The college dropout had become a successful corporate executive. But in 1986, Bill saw something others didn't. One of the most boring, unglamorous, overlooked industries you could possibly choose. Generic brands would flood the market. Challenging times were coming. The company offered him a transfer, but there was a catch. He'd have to relocate his family again. And Bill had promised his family that Gwinnett was home for good. So he started considering something that seemed absolutely crazy for a PhD scientist and Fortune 500 executive, starting his own business in commercial landscaping. Think about this for a second. Bill Russell had a PhD. He was making six figures in the 1980s, which is serious money today. He had security, benefits, prestige, respect. And he was considering throwing it all away to start a landscaping company, to cut grass, to maintain commercial properties. When Bill actually resigned and announced his plans, the criticism was brutal. Friends and family openly questioned him. Why would someone with his credentials, his position, his success, leave it all just to do landscaping? The college dropout who'd made good was now making what everyone thought was the stupidest decision of his life. The doubt was everywhere. The criticism was relentless. People literally laughed at him. But Bill later said something powerful about that moment. He said the greater the criticism, the more determined he became to succeed. Every negative remark helped him recognize that the best way to predict the future is to create it, and that no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. In March 1987, the farm boy turned college dropout turned PhD scientist started Russell Landscape Group. He landed his first annual contract with a California-based company for $300,000. That first year, the company generated $600,000 in revenue, a phenomenal start in the most boring industry imaginable. But here's what nobody saw except Bill. Those early days were brutal. He wore every hat in the company. Monitoring operations during the day, checking work quality, managing crews, then coming home at night to do bookkeeping. He slept little. He learned everything through trial and error. As he put it, entrepreneurs often take the business exams before receiving the study materials. Most landscaping companies at that time were run by guys with trucks and mowers. They had experience, they had hustle, but they didn't have systems, they didn't have processes, they didn't have Fortune 500 standards. Bill Russell brought all of that to the most boring business you could imagine. Remember, he'd spent 20 years studying the most prestigious properties in America. He knew exactly what top-tier landscaping looked like because he'd analyzed it scientifically at Augusta National and Disneyland. He understood pest management at a PhD level. He knew soil chemistry, he knew plant biology, he knew how to create systems and processes that ensured consistent quality. He wasn't just starting a landscaping company. He was bringing scientific rigor and corporate excellence to an industry that desperately needed professionalization. But Bill did something else that was even more strategic. Instead of spending money on advertising, he invested in relationships. He joined the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce. He applied to Leadership Gwinnett, a program for leaders committed to the county's growth. In 1997, he was selected, gaining massive exposure to government departments and business organizations, exponentially expanding his network. Then came a moment that would change everything. Two prominent business leaders, Wayne Mason and Richard Tucker, approached Bill with a request. They wanted him to donate landscape materials and labor for the new Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce building. The donation would cost nearly $250,000. Bill's immediate reaction, there's no way we can afford that. But Wayne and Richard convinced him that the investment would return manyfold, and they were absolutely right. Shortly after completing that project, Russell Landscape Group exploded in growth. Contracts flooded in. Projects came from everywhere. That donation taught Bill a critical lesson about building wealth in boring businesses. Strategic generosity and genuine community investment create returns that no advertising campaign ever could. Bill took that lesson and ran with it. He became a professional auctioneer, raising over $20 million for charities throughout the Southeast and Midwest. He served on boards for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, Georgia Gwinnett College, Gwinnett Health System, and Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful. He became chairman of the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Governors Nathan Deal and Brian Kemp appointed him to the Board of Governors at the Georgia World Congress Center, where he served 2 terms as chairman. And here's the kicker. Russell Landscape Group never spent money on advertising. Not in 1987, not today. $0. The entire boring landscaping company, which now generates $70 million annually, grew entirely on referrals. They've been, in the words of Bill's son Teddy, trying to swallow the fire hose from organic referrals. Let that sink in for a moment. A farm boy and college dropout built an $80 million empire in the most boring industry imaginable without spending a single dollar on advertising. But the journey wasn't all smooth. From 2002 to 2008, the company grew from $3 million to $18 million in revenue. Then the Great Recession hit, and everything changed. The company had to completely adjust operations. They survived, but barely. Then in 2013, disaster struck. The family had a massive fallout. Cousins and other family members left the operation. Bill promoted his son Teddy to president, and Teddy made major operational changes to save the company. But they started hemorrhaging money fast. At one point, Russell Landscape had only $100,000 left in the bank. Teddy told his father to take what was left and get out while they still could. Any rational business advisor would have said the same thing. Cut your losses, walk away, preserve what you can. But the farm boy who dropped out of college once, who'd been laughed at for leaving a Fortune 500 job to cut grass, wasn't about to quit. He told his son, take the money, believe in what you're doing, keep pushing, because you're almost there. That moment of faith, that refusal to quit, when everyone would have understood if he'd walked away, that's what separated Bill Russell from almost every other entrepreneur. He'd built the boring business on faith and family, and he wasn't about to abandon those principles when times got tough. Teddy took the money, kept pushing, and turned the company around completely. By 2018, Bill was ready to hand over the reins. He sold the company to Teddy, who became CEO. Since then, Teddy has nearly tripled the company's revenues, taking it from around $25 million to $70 million annually. Today, Russell Landscape Group employs over 400 people across 8 branches throughout the Southeast. The Boring Landscaping Company's mission statement is glorifying God by making everything we touch better, and they actually live it. So why does Bill Russell's story matter? Because in a world obsessed with sexy startups, viral apps, and revolutionary technology, Bill built something completely different. He took the most boring, unglamorous, overlooked industry you could imagine and turned it into an $80 million empire. He proved that you don't need a groundbreaking idea. You don't need to disrupt an industry. You don't need venture capital or a viral product. Sometimes the path to millions is paved with the most boring work imaginable, done better than anyone else. Bill Russell, the farm boy and college dropout, turned criticism into fuel, doubt into determination, and the most boring business decision into an $80 million empire. Now let's talk about the 3 secrets Bill Russell used to build his fortune in the most boring industry imaginable, because these strategies can work for anyone willing to get rich doing unglamorous work. Secret number 1, insider mastery. Most people think boring means simple, that landscaping is just cutting grass. That's the mindset that keeps people poor, while guys like Bill build empires. Bill spent 20 years getting paid to study excellence in commercial landscaping at places like Augusta National and Disneyland. By the time he started his company, he had 20 years of Fortune 500 experience and intimate knowledge of how the best properties in America were maintained. Most of his competitors, guys with trucks who learned on the job. Here's the secret. Boring businesses have less sophisticated competition. If you bring real expertise and systems to them, you can dominate. Bill brought PhD-level knowledge to an industry where most people were winging it. Secret number 2, relationship marketing. Russell Landscape Group has never spent a single dollar on advertising. Not in 1987, not today, when they're generating $80 million annually. Zero advertising budget ever. The entire company grew on referrals. Here's why this works in boring businesses. Nobody wakes up excited about commercial landscaping. Nobody wants to see ads for lawn maintenance. So Bill invested in relationships instead, joining the Chamber of Commerce, serving on boards, raising $20 million for charities as an auctioneer. That $250,000 donation to the chamber building, it created millions in new business. One strong relationship with a decision-maker is worth infinitely more than any advertising campaign. In boring industries, people don't want to be sold. They want to work with someone they trust. Secret number 3, principled resilience. When Russell Landscape was down to its last $100,000 and Teddy said, "Take what's left and get out," Bill did something insane. He bet everything on principles over profit. He told Teddy to keep pushing because they were almost there. That decision wasn't based on spreadsheets. It was based on faith. Faith in his son, faith in their mission, faith in the principles they'd built the company on. And that decision saved everything, leading to tripling the company's revenue within a few years. Here's the truth. When you build a company purely for profit, you create something fragile. But when you build on deeper principles, you find strength to keep going when reason says stop. And that's often exactly when the breakthrough happens. Bill Russell's journey from a Tennessee farm to an $80 million empire proves that you don't need a sexy business to get rich. You don't need a revolutionary idea. You don't need to disrupt an industry or go viral. Sometimes the clearest path to millions is paved with the most boring, unglamorous work imaginable, done better than anyone else is willing to do it. From farm boy to college dropout to PhD scientist to boring business millionaire. From family criticism to industry leadership. From nearly going bankrupt to 80 million in annual revenue. That's William Bill Russell, the man who proved you don't need a sexy startup to build wealth. You don't need venture capital if you have principles. And you don't need an exciting business to become a multi-millionaire. You just need insider mastery of a boring industry, relationship marketing that makes advertising unnecessary, principled resilience that survives when everyone else quits the boring work, and the courage to get rich doing what everyone else thinks is too unglamorous to pursue. Bill Russell made millions in the most boring business imaginable. And now you know exactly how he did it. He made millions, and so can you. So here's what Bill Russell's story really teaches us. He took the lessons from a Tennessee farm and decades of working for someone else, then built an empire in a boring industry. He created an $80 million company without spending a dollar on advertising, just strategic relationships and exceptional work, with some of his biggest contracts coming through government contracting. And when he was down to his last $100,000, he bet everything on faith instead of fear. But here's the real question. What if you could build something like this yourself? Whether you're thinking about starting a landscaping business or you're already running one and want to scale into the commercial and government contracting market, the principles Bill used work. That's why I want to invite you to a free course on growing and scaling a business. Inside, you'll get a complete business startup guide to launching your own landscaping business from scratch, a proven guide to scaling your business in the government contracting market, where the real money is, the frameworks that guys like Bill use to dominate boring industries without advertising. This isn't theory. These are the exact strategies that built an $80 million empire in the most unglamorous industry imaginable. Click the link in the description to sign up. It's completely free, and it could be the turning point between staying small and building something extraordinary. Bill Russell proved you don't need a sexy startup to get rich. You just need the right strategy, the right relationships, and the courage to do boring work better than anyone else. See you in the course. And if you want more stories like this of ordinary people who built extraordinary wealth in unexpected ways, watch my other videos. You'll see it on the screen. By the way, those free resources I mentioned, I dropped the links in the description area below. Just scroll down and grab them. If you've enjoyed this story, leave a comment and tell me what other type of millionaires and industries you want me to make a story on. Lastly, to get notification of future millionaire stories, hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss an I Made Millions story.